Imagine sitting in the comfort of your home, sipping your morning coffee, when suddenly you hear the news, a state is considering breaking away from the United States. It's a mind-boggling thought, isn't it? The land of the free divided? What could lead to such a monumental decision? How did we get to this point where the whispers of independence grow louder in certain corners of the country? Welcome to Discover Top 5, the channel where we take you on a journey through the most thought-provoking topics. Today, we dive into the fascinating world of secession, where some states are considering a break from the Union. What drives this desire for independence? Is it a response to history, culture, political divides, or economic struggles? From the historical roots of past secessions to the current political and economic tensions, we explore the states that might one day go their own way. In this video, we uncover the motivations behind their desire to separate, from calls for more autonomy to preserving their unique identities and economic future. These states are as diverse as the land they occupy, and their stories could change the way we think about the very concept of the United States of America. So sit back, relax, and get ready to explore some of the most intriguing stories of potential secession in the United States. Let's explore the roads less traveled, the ones that led us to the question, could America truly ever break apart? Will these states chart a new course, or will they remain tied to the Union? Stay tuned as we take you on this journey of discovery. West Virginia, often referred to as the Mountain State, is a region with a distinct history and identity. Its journey toward becoming its own entity dates back to the Civil War, when it separated from Virginia in 1863. The roots of this split were deep, stemming from disagreements over slavery and economic interests. The eastern part of Virginia thrived on plantation agriculture, a system reliant on slave labor, while the western region, which became West Virginia, was largely mountainous and unsuitable for such agriculture. Instead, the people of the western counties relied on industries such as coal, salt, and iron, which were based on free labor. This divergence laid the groundwork for West Virginia's eventual independence during the Civil War. Fast forward to today, and the state's economy still leans heavily on its natural resources, particularly coal, which remains its most significant resource. West Virginia has some of the largest coal reserves in the United States, and the state's economy has historically relied on the extraction and export of coal. However, this industry has faced challenges in recent years, contributing to population decline. Many residents have left the state in search of better economic opportunities, while others point to the state's shrinking population and economic difficulties as reasons why discussions about autonomy are not entirely out of the question. West Virginia is a land defined by its rugged mountains and narrow valleys, which have shaped the culture and lifestyle of its residents. People here take pride in their self-reliance, which is rooted in the state's history. Despite the challenges, West Virginia's distinct identity remains strong. The idea of breaking away from the United States again, just as it broke away from Virginia in the 19th century, may seem like an ambitious thought, but it's a conversation that some might entertain when considering the state's future. Moving to the Midwest, we come to Nebraska, a state known for its vast, flat prairies and agricultural dominance. The Cornhusker State is a leader in agricultural production, especially in corn, soybeans, beef, and pork. Nebraska plays a critical role in the nation's food supply chain. Beyond agriculture, the state has diversified its economy over the years, with manufacturing, transportation, and financial services playing significant roles. Omaha, the state's largest city, is home to several Fortune 500 companies, including Berkshire Hathaway. Despite its strong economic foundation, Nebraska's unique position in the country has sparked speculation about the possibility of it going independent. Geographically, Nebraska sits at the heart of the United States, with major highways and railroads crossing its plains. This central location makes it a crucial hub for trade and logistics.
On the one hand, this could work to Nebraska's advantage if it ever chose to go it alone. But on the other hand, it could face challenges maintaining these infrastructure networks without federal support. The state's history of self-reliance, combined with its sense of community, might be reasons why the idea of Nebraska gaining more autonomy resonates with some. Nebraskans pride themselves on their strong sense of fairness and justice, as evidenced by the state motto, equality before the law. These values, combined with economic strength and geographical advantages, give rise to the question, could Nebraska, given its resources and strategic position, sustain itself as an independent entity? New York, the Empire State, is often seen as a world unto itself, with its bustling streets, towering skyscrapers, and a culture that influences the globe. New York has long been considered a state with the potential to stand on its own. The relationship between upstate and downstate New York has been contentious for years, with upstate residents often feeling overshadowed by the fast-paced life of New York City. This divide is not just about geography but also economics and politics. Upstate New Yorkers, whose economy depends on industries like agriculture and manufacturing, have expressed frustration over what they perceive as a lack of attention from Albany, the state capital. Many upstate regions feel neglected when it comes to state funding and political representation. This sense of disparity has sparked discussions about greater autonomy or even secession, with some towns in the southern tier even exploring the possibility of joining neighboring Pennsylvania. Historically, New York City considered breaking away from the rest of the state during the Civil War era, with plans to become a sovereign city-state. Although those plans never materialized, the idea of New York asserting its independence has resurfaced over time, especially given the state's significant economic clout. If New York were an independent nation, its economy would rank among the top globally, driven by industries like Wall Street, tourism, and technology. However, the challenges are immense. The state's vast infrastructure, reliance on federal funding, and its diverse population makes secession a complex and unlikely option. Nonetheless, the notion of New York go in it alone remains a fascinating topic in political discussions. Oklahoma, known for its rich Native American history and oil fields, has a unique culture and history that shape its current political landscape. Oklahomans take great pride in their independent spirit, which is reflected in the state's political leanings. The state's political culture tends to favor limited government and local control, and many Oklahomans are deeply connected to their agricultural and energy-based industries, especially oil and gas. In December 2024, the Oklahoma State Legislature passed a resolution asserting its sovereignty under the 10th Amendment, which reserves powers not delegated to the federal government to the states. This move, while largely symbolic, highlighted the state's desire for greater autonomy. The resolution was driven by disagreements over federal policies, particularly in the energy sector, where federal regulations have clashed with state interests. Despite the challenges the state has faced in recent years, particularly with fluctuating oil prices and environmental concerns, Oklahoma's economy remains resilient. Agriculture, manufacturing, and a growing tech sector continue to provide economic stability. However, the state's heavy reliance on fossil fuels and federal energy policies makes discussions about secession more complicated. New Hampshire, known as the Granite State, has a rugged natural beauty that attracts both residents and visitors alike. The state is often associated with a strong sense of independence, which is reflected in its political culture. New Hampshire is unique in that its state constitution allows for secession, provided that a significant portion of the population agrees. This provision has led to occasional conversations about New Hampshire's future outside of the Union. In 2024, a proposal for New Hampshire to secede was overwhelmingly rejected, but the conversation has not entirely disappeared. A significant number of residents feel that the federal government is overreaching and that the state's unique identity and values are not adequately represented at the national level. These sentiments were heightened by events such as the 2007 armed standoff over tax evasion charges, which symbolized a streak of fierce independence among some locals. Economically, New Hampshire faces challenges related to high housing costs and a relatively low minimum wage compared to the cost of living. These factors contribute to a sense of frustration, particularly among lower-income households. Some argue that New Hampshire's political and economic landscape could be better managed if it were more independent. Florida, the Sunshine State, is known for its warm climate, vibrant culture, and thriving tourism industry. However, Florida's unique history and current challenges make it a state with growing secessionist sentiments. Historically, Florida was one of the original Confederate states during the Civil War, and its political landscape remains complex to this day. In recent years, Florida has faced environmental challenges, particularly related to rising sea levels and frequent severe storms. By 2100, it's predicted that much of the state's coastline could be permanently submerged, a situation exacerbated by the state's heavy reliance on tourism. As Floridians face these growing environmental threats, some have begun to question whether the federal government is doing enough to address their concerns.
The state's history of secessionist tendencies stemming from its time in the Confederacy adds another layer of complexity. While modern discussions about secession are not as widespread, there is a growing sense among some Floridians that the state's unique challenges warrant a more independent approach. Texas, the Lone Star State, is perhaps the most famous example of a state with a history of secessionist sentiment. Texas was an independent republic from 1836 to 1845 before it joined the United States. This history of independence is a significant part of the state's identity, and discussions about secession have occasionally resurfaced, particularly when the White House is held by a Democrat. Texas's size, economic power, and cultural identity make it a unique case for secession talks. It is the second largest state by both area and population, with over 29 million residents. Its economy is the ninth largest in the world, fueled by industries such as oil and gas, technology, agriculture, and more. Texas's economic strength and political independence are key factors driving the conversation about secession. Although legally, the idea of Texas breaking away is extremely unlikely given the Supreme Court's ruling in Texas v. White 1869 that secession is unconstitutional. The state's economic and political clout makes it a fascinating candidate for such discussions. Louisiana, with its rich cultural heritage, vibrant music scene, and distinct cuisine, is a state that has long been connected to the idea of secession. Louisiana was one of the original Confederate states during the Civil War, and the idea of secession has resurfaced in various forms over the years. While the state's modern push for independence is not as strong as some others, there is still a sense of distinct identity among Louisianans. The state's economy is deeply tied to industries such as oil, natural gas, and shipping. Louisiana's strategic location along the Gulf of Mexico and its busy port in New Orleans give it a level of economic self-sufficiency. However, like many oil-dependent states, Louisiana faces challenges related to fluctuating energy prices and environmental concerns. Environmental issues such as coastal erosion have led the state to consider new ways of managing its land and resources. While Louisiana's secessionist movements are relatively low-key, the state's strong sense of identity, combined with its economic self-sufficiency, make it an interesting candidate in the discussion of potential breakaway states.
California, the Golden State, is one of the most economically powerful regions in the world. With a population of nearly 40 million people, California's economy is the fifth largest in the world, driven by industries such as entertainment, technology, agriculture, and tourism. In recent years, California has seen renewed discussions about secession, especially after a controversial 2025 ballot initiative to gauge support for California's independence. The reasons behind California's secessionist talk are multifaceted. Many Californians feel that their state's values and priorities are not represented in national politics, especially during periods of conservative governance. The state's history of climate change policies, progressive social issues, and environmental regulations has led some residents to believe that California could fare better as an independent nation. While the legal and logistical hurdles are enormous, California's economic clout and desire for political independence make it a state that continues to capture the imagination of those interested in secession movements. Finally, we turn to Alaska, the largest state in the US and one with a unique geographical and economic position. Alaska's history of secessionist sentiment dates back to the 20th century, and while modern movements are more symbolic than practical, the state's vast natural resources and reliance on federal support make it an interesting case. Alaska is rich in oil and gas, but the state's economy has struggled with fluctuations in energy prices and a growing dependency on federal funding. The state's recent economic difficulties have led some residents to question whether Alaska could stand on its own. However, Alaska's reliance on federal funding, particularly for infrastructure and military presence, makes secession a complicated and unlikely proposition. Alaska's rugged beauty and frontier spirit continue to shape its identity, and the idea of secession remains a conversation starter rather than a realistic possibility. Despite the challenges, Alaska's unique position in the US makes it an intriguing state to watch when it comes to discussions about state sovereignty.
As we reach the end of our journey today, it's clear that the idea of secession, whether rooted in history, economic struggles, or political divides, remains a complex and fascinating topic. These states, each with their own unique story, remind us that the concept of unity isn't always as simple as it seems. What seems like a distant possibility today might become a more pressing issue tomorrow. But one thing is certain, the conversation around secession forces us to reconsider the meaning of unity, identity, and the future of our nation. From the bustling streets of New York to the rugged mountains of West Virginia, every state carries with it a distinct history and a vision of its future. And while these discussions may seem improbable to some, they serve as a reminder of the power of self-determination and the complexities of a nation as diverse as the United States. Now, we want to hear from you. What do you think? Are these states just having a bit of wishful thinking? Or could there be a future where we see a shift in the Union? Could one of these states ever truly break away? We'd love to hear your thoughts and opinions in the comments below. Remember, Discover Top 5 is all about exploring the most fascinating, thought-provoking, and sometimes unexpected topics. If you enjoyed today's video, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more deep dives into the stories that shape our world. And, of course, if you haven't already, turn on the notification bell so you never miss out on our next video. If you're passionate about discovering new ideas and uncovering intriguing concepts, you're in the right place. We've got so much more coming your way. So stick around and join us for the next video where we continue to explore the most fascinating stories from around the world. Until then, keep discovering, keep questioning, and as always, stay curious. See you next time.